Um, we talked. I'm multitasking. Uh, we talked on Tuesday. We kind of left the discussion with populations and characteristics, right? That's kind of where we left off. I'll write the definitions for you again as a review. I'm just getting some dish soap on a rag so I can clean the board. So, a population is all members that we want to take a look at, right?
Yes.
In a nutshell.
Sounds good to me.
Really, man, that's tough. I'll leave my wife's artwork up if that's okay with you guys. Okay, that's a little better. So as a review, I guarantee this is not a definition from the textbook. They probably go into it in far more depth. But in a Reader's Digest condensed object, it's a set of objects we want to examine. It has to be defined. Board hasn't dried yet over there. It'll dry. It has to be defined. And it's all objects, right? We don't pick and choose. We look at everybody in the population.
So you mean all objects that fit the definition?
Absolutely.
Okay.
For example, population could be, I left your artwork there, dear. For example, it could be the global human population. That is, this hasn't dried yet. Man. Can you get me a paper towel or something, please? The humidity is so high that this is still pretty wet. This is population, is it not? So we would take a, thank you, David. We would take a look at everybody, right? If that's the population we're looking at? Yes, no?
Yes.
What about residents of the state of Ohio? Is that a population?
Yes.
Sure it is. It happens to be a
subset.
It happens to be a subset of the world population, but it is nonetheless a valid population that we could take a look at. I'll write that down for you. Okay. What about this? Is that a population? Absolutely. Okay. Are there any questions so far? Is there any ambiguity or anything like that? Yeah. Okay. Everybody's okay? Um, we also looked at a characteristic or the definition of a characteristic. How did we define it, guys? Was it a trait or property, I think? Is that what we said? We are examining, I guess. So the population is a set of objects. The characteristic is what are we looking at among those objects. Do you buy that?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, couple things. The value of the characteristic, it could be numeric, yes, no? The population is LCC students currently taking classes at LCC. The characteristic could be GPA. That's definitely numeric, yes, no?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Right? The characteristic could be how many credit hours are you taking? Or is each student taking, right? It could be, and this is used for demographic information of college students. How many residents of the household are there? That's a number, right? Okay. It could be some off the wall. Well, to me, it's off the wall, but it could be some off the wall characteristic, like how many hamburgers do you eat in a week? Right? It's still numeric and it's still a characteristic. Could be numeric, or the other term is called categoric. Okay. Categoric is eye color, hair color. What kind of car do you drive? In other words, non-numeric. Do you see that? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Something like that, right? Whereas categoric, you would have to define, and we're going to get to this like next week. Categoric would be, how many Fords do students at LCC drive? How many Chryslers? How many Chevys? How many Hondas? How many Toyotas? Okay. So does everybody understand that? If I roll a die, is the characteristic that results really the only characteristic that really matters? Is it numeric or categoric? If I roll a die, 6-sided die, for example. Sure. Isn't it a number 1 through 6? Isn't it numeric? Does everybody understand that? Well, that's true. That's true. But then you're talking numeric. Okay, let's talk category. Let's flip a coin. What happens if you flip a coin? Right? Is that numeric? It's not.
Hmm.
If I flip a heads, what's the numeric value of that? I don't know. If I flip a tail, what's the numeric value of that? I don't know. If I ask each of you what your hair color is, there's no numeric value there. Okay? So those are all examples of categoric data. Now we can assign a rule to it, which we're going to get into. So like if I flip a coin, a heads is +1 and a tails is -1. Then it becomes numeric. But we have to have a rule to do so. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Everybody okay? Today is definitions day, so what's a census?
To be a sum of all parts of a population.
If I put words in your mouth, that's a good definition. Yeah. The operative words there are all parts. Okay. A census is where we have characteristic data we obtain the values of a characteristic from all members of the population. That's called a census. Okay. We're getting an echo from somebody. I don't know who. The United States government takes a census every 10 years, don't they? You have to fill out census forms. Is that right? Pretty sure that is. So
Probably. I've never.
you know what? I'm not sure they did last year.
I don't think they did. Mailed it in.
Did they take a census last year?
I thought my wife mailed something in. She said about the census.
Okay, all right. So I mean, it's I don't know if it's a law or if it's actually like a constitutional thing. I have no idea. I just wondered if they suspended it last year because the pandemic. So every 10 years, the United States government sends out a questionnaire to each household in the entire United States. And they ask questions like, who are you? I think you have to put your social security number probably, but they already know your social security number. So it's not like it's a big secret to them, at least. But they ask other questions like how many people live at this address? How many dependents do you have, I believe? Mm-hmm. Stuff like that, right? I think.
Yeah.
So is that a true census? Does that fit our definition?
Well, it's not being applied to a characteristic. It's applied to the whole population.
Well, they're getting values of a characteristic, though.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Right? Like how many people live at this address. So if the population is defined as all residencies in the United States, the Census Bureau does take a census, right?
Mhm.
or at least they try to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They
Can
go to
I-
everybody. They don't pick and choose. They go to everybody. Okay? Does everybody see that?
Can I try and put this like in my own words?
Absolutely.
So the population is your set that you're examining, and then the census is how many times a characteristic appears within the population.
That's frequency. The census is the act of obtaining the data. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, let's talk voting. We have an election coming up, so of course, this is an odd year. Yeah, 2021. So fortunately, we're going to be spared a few of the political ads, the advertisements. In a presidential election year, we're hammered from August on with nothing but mudslinging campaign ads, right? Right.
Mhm.
As you can tell, you might be able to tell, I am not political at all. Bunch of liars and crooks. Is the vote? Let's look at the vote last year. Biden won the election, the presidential election, right? Was that a census?
No, because not everybody in the population voted.
Okay. Where if I would argue that it was. And my argument would be valid before anyone tries to correct me. Let me explain. I would argue that the population isn't every single eligible voter in the country. The population is those that voted.
Yep. That's what we're
Then it
doing.
is the census, correct? Okay. Do you see, and this is important for everyday life. This is probably one of this in professional development. I sometimes teach that. This class in professional development and statics are probably the three classes that probably convey the most everyday life kind of advice and philosophies and discussion. Do you see that we can change what the I don't want to use the word outcome. That's not correct. We can change things by simply redefining the population. So we can say that, yeah, we took data from everybody. We took data from everybody. All we got to do is change who everybody is. Right? Absolutely. But I just gave you an example, right? We just looked at one. If we define in an election, if we define the population as everybody who votes, or I'm sorry, everybody who's eligible to vote, it's not a census. Okay? At least in this country. If we change the definition, okay, yeah, sure it is. Sure it is. Does anybody have any? Is anybody from a foreign country or have relatives that are from a foreign country where voting percentages are quite different than America. I don't know. I seriously don't know.
Yeah,
If
like
any
my
of you will.
in my country,
Yeah.
the percentage usually 95 to 100.
Okay. Can I ask what country that is, Kenny?
Yeah, Vietnam. I'm from Vietnam.
Vietnam. Now, what happens if I live in Vietnam and I'm my age, which is 56? So I'm sure I'm eligible to vote, right?
Yes.
What happens if I don't vote? Is there any
No,
repercussions?
nothing.
Nothing.
Yes.
Okay. So it's strictly voluntary. It's a right to vote.
Yeah, you have right to vote.
But it's not enforced. It's not,
Yes.
you got to vote or you get fined or something like that.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Cool. And it's 90+%.
Yes.
See, the Vietnamese take their vote very seriously, don't they?
No.
No?
Yeah.
They do, right? Now, are they voting for more? Are they
They,
able to vote for more
like me,
than?
my parents don't even know who they vote for.
I'm sorry.
They don't
Can
have
you?
any information who to be vote for it or something.
Oh, there's no choice.
Yes, just some choice. They choose already. So just
Really?
come there and just write out.
Okay. See, I was trying to say the Vietnamese got it right, but you're telling me that it's all rigged.
Yes. No, it's not
That's
right.
unfortunate. That's unfortunate. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you really think the Chinese have a choice?
Same thing. Vietnam
I
and
mean,
Chinese may be the same thing.
okay,
They
that's
do
what
the
I kind
same
of
way.
thought. That's what I kind of thought. Um, a lot of times there's no choice. I mean, they hold elections and they say, "Oh, this guy won by 90%." Well,
Yeah, they don't even get a number from the vote. They just
really, they just
they
say
just
this
give
guy
the
won.
number they want. Yeah, they just give the number they calculate already. Kind of.
That is not good. So again, do you see that we can change things by nothing more than a clever redefinition of the population or how the characteristic is worded? Okay. And unfortunately, especially in the advertising industry, they do this all the time where they change a statistic so that it says, this horrible tasting chewing gum tastes great because 2 out of 3 people like it. Well, they don't tell you that those 2 out of 3, the 2 people that like it have absolutely no sense of taste or something like that, right? They skew the data. It's not right, but it happens. So, is everybody clear on the definitions of population, census, and characteristic? Everybody clear? Can I erase it? Can I reboot the whiteboard?
I think we're good.
I like that. I've never used that term, reboot the whiteboard. I like that.
That was good.
Thank you. Is that Brian?
Yes.
I thought so. It's good to hear your voice, Brian.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
It's good to hear everyone's voice for that matter. Believe it or not, I do miss teaching when we have a break. I'm thankful for the break, but I do miss you guys. I really do. I'm not just making that up. Okay. What's the sample set? If a census is the process of taking data from everybody in the population, sample set's kind of the opposite. It's a subset of members of the population, of a population, however the population is defined. I hope it's obvious to you that obtaining values in a census is more accurate because you're getting data from everybody than data that's obtained using a subset. I hope that's obvious. Is it not? Does anybody have any trouble distinguishing the two? A subset is where we just pick 1/10 of the members of the population, or even half the members of the population. Okay? And we get data from them, and we make decisions based on that data. Whereas a census is everybody, we get data from everybody in the population. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you're probably asking yourselves, well, if it's less accurate, right? I mean, data from only half the people in a group is not as accurate as if we got data from everybody in the group, right? Right? Does that
Right.
make sense? So why would we even talk about sample sets? Well, again, I go back to I could probably do nothing but use the election process in the state of in the country for examples all semester long. I won't, because I'll probably end up getting sick to my stomach by the third week. But it's so comical. In the days and weeks leading up to an election, isn't don't all the news outlets and all that, don't they say, Mike DeWine is in the lead for the the governor spot, so and so's trailing by 4 percentage points, something like that, right? You've seen those, right? Going into an election, you've seen these polls, right, that come out, and so and so's ahead, then the other guy's ahead, and then that guy does something really stupid, and then a gal's ahead, and then it's a never ending, right? Well, what's that? Those are polls. Those are polls. Do you really I beg your pardon? No, I'm just talking polls. Just talking polls. Do you really think that the people that gather that data, do you really think they ask everybody in the entire population? With population being those who are likely to vote. Do you think they ask everybody?
I'm not convinced they ask anyone.
Okay, I'll buy that. I will. They don't. The polls don't count, at least nowhere near as much as the actual election. So no, they don't ask everybody. In fact, in the statewide elections, I think they frequently ask like somewhere between 1,000 and 10,000 people for like the governor's seat or who they're going to vote for president. Well, the eligible voters population is much, much higher. It's in the millions. Okay, so they take a sample set. Do you see that? It's a sample set. Why do they take a sample set? Well, it's a poll. Does it really count? No. So the data isn't, truly important. Is it important? Maybe. I don't pay any attention to it, but that's just me. Why would they take a sample set? Well, a census costs time, right? And a whole lot of money because somebody's got to get that data and tabulate it. Sample sets are cheaper. They do it to save time, to save money. Can you imagine if, like the CNN poll or the Fox News poll or whatever else there is out there? I can't remember. Can you imagine if they tried to make those an actual census? Well, they may as well hold the election then, right? So we take a sample set. All right. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. The members of the population, right? Okay. That's called a representative sample set. Because what are you going to do? What are you going to do with the sample set data? Since,
An estimation.
and how do you do that? You do that by extrapolation. Let me get this written and then we're going to talk. I got to sit down. My knee's killing me. The problem with sample sets, everyone, is sometimes they're not representative. Okay? Now, let's start simple. Let's say you work. Does anybody work at a fast food joint or maybe Chipotle or something like that? Anyone? Or has worked or has a brother that works? Come on, make something up. I don't care. I'm not going to check.
Yeah, I have worked.
Who is I?
Chris.
Chris. Okay. So are you going to expand your work experience and open your own restaurant? Would you like to open your own restaurant, Chris? You'd be the owner?
As opposed to a worker?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be better.
Well, okay, that's fine. Yeah, I know. When I worked in in the kitchen of a retirement home when I was in school. Worst job I ever had. So yes, wise man. Well, Chris, today's your lucky day because today, until 5:20 at least, you're going to own your own restaurant. Okay.
Okay.
All right. What kind of restaurant are you going to own, Chris?
Pizza shop.
A pizza joint. Okay. So, you let's say that one of your chefs or cooks or pizza preppers or something like that comes up to you with a new kind of pizza, right?
Mhm.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe it's got, I have no idea. But it's really expensive. Okay. It's really expensive to make. Okay. Pretend. So are you going to put it on the menu like automatically without any customer feedback?
No, you want to pilot it.
I would think that you would have some people sample it. Ideally, you'd ask all of your regular customers to sample it, right? Ideally, you do that. But
Right.
again, time, money, right? Some people don't want to be bothered, right? I mean, if a mom's got, she's picking up, she picks up pizza every Friday and she's got a couple of toddlers running around. Well, she's probably not going to want to stick around for 5 minutes and taste test your new pizza. Possibly, right? So you're going to take a sample set, right?
Right.
So in order to be okay, time out. I forget I said that. So let's say you only get data, you only ask guys, what they think. Is that representative?
It would be a sample set.
It would be a sample set, right?
Right.
Because we already defined the population as Chris's regular pizza customers.
Mhm.
Is it okay if I call your pizza shop if I call it a pizza joint? Because that's what we'd call it in this house. We'd call it a pizza joint. Are you offended by that?
It does not offend me.
Okay. You never know, right? Some people are really easily offended these days. Okay. So anyway, so that's not representative. Yes, no, guys? Do you see that? True.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. Right. But we already said, he's got at least one mom that comes in with 2 toddlers every Friday. So, right. Right. It's not representative. And who's married? Is somebody
I am.
married? You are, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay. If your lovely bride says she wants pepperoni pizza, what do?
You get pepperoni pizza.
What happens if you don't?
There is no choice.
You too, huh, my friend? So you'd be that's funny. So what if Chris intelligently asks only the gals that come to the end of the shop for a taste of the pizza? Is that representative?
No.
It's not. It's not. I mean, for families, it probably is somewhat, right? Because usually what Mama Bear says goes. And if you don't believe me, think back to what Chris said a couple minutes ago, and ask any dad what Mama Bear says goes. You've heard the story. If Mama ain't happy, there ain't nobody happy, right? It's true. So that's not representative either, right? What if Chris only asked people that buy pizza on Friday? Is that representative compared to the other 2? Let's put it that way.
There's a chance of being more representative.
It should be a lot better. Should be. What if he? I assume pizza joints' big days are probably Friday and Saturday. I would think, right? Maybe Sunday included. Probably.
Probably.
If Chris asked everybody who comes in the shop Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, is that representative?
It probably would be.
It probably would be. It probably would. So do you see that getting representative samples is really important? What if I'll just dive into the other example, the big one. Okay. Believe it or not, in you've over the past 20 years, you may not have noticed. I don't know. But when this country holds elections, the election results, right, are not announced in the media until after the polls close. Okay. I don't know if you've noticed that, but that's the way it is. It wasn't that way before the year 2000. Okay. In the year 2000, and this is probably ancient history for at least half of you, probably more than half. That was the year. I'm looking for some images to show you on this topic. That was the year that George W. Bush, right? He's the junior, right? The son,
Correct.
right? That was the year that he faced off against Al Gore. Okay. And in your history books, again, for you, you guys that have, aren't more than 25 or 30, you probably read about, maybe, possibly in your history books about that election. Okay. It came down to the state of Florida. All right. And specifically, it really, one of the huge issues in Florida was Palm Beach County. I think it was Palm Beach County. Pretty sure that's true. Palm Beach County was fairly. It was more Democratic than Republican. And again, I'm not political, guys. Okay. If they're Republican, I think they're a liar or a crook or both. If they're a Democrat, same thing. That's why I'm not in politics, by the way. Traditionally, at least in Florida's a big retirement state, right? A lot of retirees, right?
Mm-hmm.
Come on, guys, help me out.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of retirees.
It is a lot of one reason is because pensions. When you retire, you get a pension, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pensions aren't taxed in the state of Florida. I'm pretty sure that's true. They are not taxed. I think Pennsylvania doesn't tax pensions, income from pensions. Florida doesn't. Maybe Arizona. They don't tax them. I beg your pardon? Right. Now they have income tax if you're working. Most states do, but they don't tax pensions. So do you see that if you're retired and drawing a pension, right, you're living on that, right? Do you see that living in the state of Florida would be pretty darn attractive? Yep. Right. Right. But it's still a couple grand a year, right? S- Right. Right. Understood. So and obviously the climate's a lot better at least in the wintertime. Climate's a whole lot better than it is up here if you don't like the cold. And I'm sure probably all of you are younger than me. When you get to be my age, winters can get old. Trust me. Okay. So there's a lot of retirees in Florida, and you may or may not know that retirees usually vote Democratic because the big political hot potato between one of the big hot potatoes between the two parties is Social Security. Okay. And Democrats will strongly support Social Security, and Republicans are painted as as a party that wants to get rid of Social Security. So, fairly or unfairly, that's the perception. And that's why a lot of retirees vote Democratic. Okay. I'm not saying one party's right and one party's wrong. I'm just saying that's the way it is. So Palm Beach County usually went Democratic. Okay. Well, this, I think it was Palm Beach County. Yep. Let me show you. This, let's see, how do I do that? Oh, switch screens. Change windows. Can you see the ballot?
Yes.
Oh, was this the hanging chads?
We're getting to that.
Oh, yeah.
This was, is this actually, does anyone actually remember this election?
Yeah,
There's a lot of, from what one of my colleagues at work, he was from Florida. He lived there for like 10 or 15 years, so he had a lot of contacts, and he was actually up here working during the 2000 election, but he had a lot of friends down there. And his friends said that the media got it all wrong. The media portrayed peaceful protests. It wasn't. I guess it wasn't peaceful at all in some places. There's a lot of violence between the supporter Democratic people and Republican people, which is really sad. Anyway, this was the Palm Beach County ballot. Okay, you see George Bush as candidate number 3. So what you would do if you wanted to vote for George Bush, you would punch this hole out right there. Okay. And the hole, the chunk of paper, when you, everything's electronic now because of this election. That's another fallout from it. This right here in the background, that's actually a piece of paper, guys. Okay. And this was your ballot. Okay. So you had a stylus that kind of looked like actually kind of like a pen, a somewhat large diameter sewing pen, and you punched out this hole. Okay. This ballot's actually a punch card. Okay. So if you wanted to vote for Bush, you punched out this hole here. And the piece of paper that was removed is called a Chad. Okay. Not to be confused with the country or the male name Chad. Okay. It was called a Chad. All right. Notice that Al Gore, the Democratic candidate, was candidate here. You would punch this hole out for Al Gore. Do you see that? Yes, no?
Yeah.
If you wanted to vote for one of these other guys, okay, and these guys are the 1% of the vote, 2% of the vote maximum, right? All the guys that generally don't get too many votes. Those are all these others, okay? All these others. Now, I need to point out that this ballot right here in this format was approved by both Republican and Democratic parties in Palm Beach County. They both approved it. Okay? So, do you see any issues with the ballot? Probably not among the folks on this call or on this in this lecture. Well, do you see that somebody could mistakenly punch hole number 4, thinking they were voting for Gore? Yep. Do you see how that, if you weren't paying attention, do you see that might happen?
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I don't know how many of you know who Pat Buchanan is. I seriously don't know. Pat Buchanan is more conservative. The Reform Party is more conservative than the Republicans are. Okay? Does that make sense? You know how the Democrats are frequently characterized as being liberal, the Republicans are frequently characterized as being conservative. Well, the Reform Party is more conservative, far more conservative than the Republican Party. So there is no way on God's green earth that the average retiree would vote for Pat Buchanan. Do you see that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And in Palm Beach County alone, Pat Buchanan got 3,000 more votes than he did in the previous election. The margin in the state of Florida, the final margin was, I think, 567 votes or something like that for George Bush. That's why George Bush won the election, because he took Florida. It all came down to Florida. And if you look at what probably happened, the Gore's votes, 3,000 of Gore's votes probably went to Pat Buchanan, and he would have been president. Do you see that? National, yeah. Yep. And it's all in the numbers, right? If George Bush would have carried the state by 10,000 votes, it'd be kind of academic. Although it's still a problem because you shouldn't have any confusion in the voting. In case you're wondering, there was a whole slew of media. This was one ballot, right? Let's see. There was a couple of humorous. I don't know if I can find. It's hard to find these days. When all this was unfolding before the country, stuff like this, you couldn't avoid it. You just couldn't avoid it. Yeah, kind of. Bad design, but again, Palm Beach ballot. Again, it all boils down to numbers and what they mean. Here, this is one I want to show you. This was the official Florida presidential. Whether you agree or disagree, and another thing was that we pointed out was it was kind of scary that the president of the United States was being determined by people who couldn't read a ballot, and which is a little bit true, a little bit unfair too. What was I going to show you next? Oh, hanging chads. Oh, I closed it too soon. Doggone it. So what we got? 2000 Florida. There were, how many recounts were there? I think two recounts. I think there were 2 hand recounts. Oh, come on. I'm wasting time. 2000 presidential election in Florida. Florida ballot count. So these punch cards, guys, these punch cards would be sent through a punch card reader to read them, okay? And this guy became a national sensation overnight, okay? Because they got pictures like this, right? It went to court. I don't know, Chris, I don't know if you remember that. The Republicans took it to the state Supreme Court, or was it the national? One of them took it to the state Supreme Court. The other party took it to the United States Supreme Court. I think the Democrats went to the national Supreme Court. I think. Yeah. I could be wrong on that, so make sure you check me. But anyway, and the reason was, as you can hopefully guess, the Florida Supreme Court was, let's say, Republican. The United States Supreme Court was mostly Democratic Party. Okay, even though the justices are supposed to be impartial, they still, I mean, come on. They're appointed by presidents who are either Republicans or Democrats. So one party took it to the Supreme Court that would be favorable to them. The other party took it to the Supreme Court that'd be favorable to them. And the Florida Supreme Court said that in the ballot recount, which this guy is performing among thousands of other people, Florida has, I think, population about 15 million or 20 million, something like that. It's probably more now. But there were, I think, several million votes to count, maybe 10 million votes to count. The direction from the Supreme Court was, if the voter's intent is, obvious, that vote has to be counted. Okay. Well, most of them were totally obvious because they were cast correctly. A lot of them had. Who mentioned hanging chads?
That was me, Chris.
That was you? Yeah. This was the hanging chad thing, right?
Right. Like they changed their mind or something.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the stylus didn't remove the piece of paper completely. Okay. So when the punch card, this is the punch card. This is your ballot. When the punch card went through the card reader, if the chad wasn't completely removed, it was called a hanging chad, and sometimes it would go back over the hole and the vote wouldn't be counted. That's why they wanted to do a manual recount. and everybody got familiar with the term hanging Chad. And there's a couple of them, couple pictures that are hopefully in here. This is the same guy. There's a really humorous one, and I don't know if we're going to be able to see it. Yeah, here's another one of the same guy, right?
Yeah.
Poor guy had to be cross-eyed by the time this was over, right? There's a famous one because the verdict from the Supreme Court was if the intent was obvious. There's a famous picture of him holding the ballot up to his head, trying to read the mind of the voter. It's a totally. I can't find it. I'm not going to waste any more time. But that's the Florida. Let's get to the statistics thing. And then by the time we're done, we'll probably be out of time. But it's a really good discussion, I think. So what happened in Florida? Okay, they took what are called exit polls. They still take exit polls. And what are exit polls? Anyone know? Go, Esteban, go. That's
They're like
where.
unofficial.
Oh, it's totally unofficial.
Yeah.
That's where some dude camps out outside the voting place. What do they call those? Polling place. Polling. I don't remember. It's where you cast your vote. What's that? Polling station. Thank you. So you got some dude hanging out there, probably from the media, right? And he just asks voters as they're leaving, "Hey, who'd you vote for?" That's an exit poll. Okay. Well, I want you to think about the daily routine of what the average, I don't know what that means, but what the who the early commuters going to work might vote for, who the people who are not working at the time might vote for, and who the guys coming home might work for. Okay. I think the polling station is probably open at 6:30 in the morning. Okay, so the first exit polls, and they were published at that time. They were broadcast. Okay, so the first exit polls, do you think they were Republican or Democratic? What do you think? Remember, if you're a working guy, especially a white collar worker like an engineer, accountant, lawyer, doctor, nurse, that kind of thing, and you're going to work, early in the morning, who are you going to vote for? Republican or Democrat?
Stereotype would probably be Republican.
Yeah, very much so. Okay, that's a stereotype. That's just a general statement. It's not, there's obvious exceptions. It's not 100% by any means, but it's probably 60 to 70% Republican over Democrat. So the early exit polls showed Bush in the lead. Do you see that? Right? That's what you'd expect. Well, if you're a Democrat, what do you if you're like working for the Democratic National Convention and working in the Democratic headquarters in each county and each city and that kind of thing, what are you going to do when you hear that? You're going to sit around crying if you have an exit poll coming in at 8 in the morning showing Bush is in the lead? You wouldn't, but
No,
would you
you're
try to
gonna
do
go
something
vote.
about it?
You're gonna go vote.
You're going to go vote, definitely, Ryan.
Yeah.
100%. And what else are you going to do?
You're
Who's
gonna try and
Democratic?
convince
Who's
the people that can't get to the polls? So you're gonna try and make sure everybody that you think is Democratic can get there to vote as well.
there? I mean, are you going to go in a what's it, You're going to go in a firm that has 30 accountants working in there. You're going to go there to try to drum up Democratic voters? No. Where are you going to go? How about a retiree home, nursing home? Are they going to vote Democratic?
More than likely.
Oh, by far more than likely, probably 80%. Okay, so that's what they did. They had buses going to retirement homes. There was nothing wrong with it. There was certainly nothing illegal. They were just trying to get Democratic registered voters to the polling stations. Nothing wrong with that at all, really. But then the exit polls showed that Gore was in the lead. So what are you going to do if you're a Republican? There you go, right? You're going to, Bush is in the lead. Oh, he's not in the lead by much, and it was pretty close all day. Not in the lead by much. I'm going to give my buddy a call. I know he's a Republican. He's out cutting grass. Wonder if he voted. You're going to go to other places, and you have your Republican Party members, right, from the what do they call those? Not precincts. The primaries, right? You have people from the Republican primary, voters from the Republic. You're going to give those guys a call, right? Make sure they're getting out and voting and offering rides, blah, 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 right? And it swung that way several times through the day. Okay. The guys coming home from work, the guys coming home from factory jobs, a lot of those are Republican Democrat, because in general, union factory jobs, blue collar, is frequently more Democratic than Republican. So when those guys got off work, the exit polls showed Gore would, and it seesawed back and forth all day long. Okay. What was the problem with the exit polls, guys? What's the word we're looking for? Agreed, wholeheartedly. Not representative. Okay? If the exit poll was representative, they wouldn't have just sat outside the polling station during a specific time. They'd spread it out over the whole day, right? While the polling station's open. And at that time, it's not even a sample set. It's a census by that time, right? Because you got data from everybody. So there's a lot of things that affected the fact that George Bush was elected president in the year 2000. There's quite a few factors, any one of which could have changed who won that election. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it is. So whenever you take a sample set, you have to be careful. Okay? Any questions? Any questions at all?
No.
Okay, we're going to call it a week, okay? And I will see you virtually again on Tuesday, okay? A couple of you, I guess I'll see you on Monday. Right? Okay,